Now that everybody who's gonna get it probably has GT Sport closed beta, due to all of the reasons you're expected to get it have it now, I figured I'd go ahead and give more impressions of this here game. I already did one video on this giving more simple first impressions, and I have that linked in the description if you haven't watched that yet. But for this video, I'll go into more detail of certain parts of the game so y'all can see if you like it or dislike it and what similarities and differences you see in the game compared to I do. I'll go ahead and start off by saying that this game seems to be favoring four-wheel drive cars. There's no dirt tracks in the game yet, so that does seem kind of odd in theory, but for N300, the best car is the Mitsubishi Lancer, which is four-wheel drive, and for Group 4, the best car is the Nissan GTR, which is four-wheel drive. And as far as I know, for Group 3, there isn't any four-wheel drive, so it doesn't really apply to that class. But for classes that have four-wheel drive, the best cars seem to be the ones that are four-wheel drive. I don't really know if that's going to end up being a good thing or bad thing. I guess we're going to have to see for how balance of power ends up working out in the main game. But for now, it does seem like the four-wheel drive cars are the way to go. I think all in all that is a good thing for the game for now. Again, we'll see about later, but for now, I think that's good for people just picking up the game, say European region who got the code recently, because four-wheel drive cars are easier to drive and better to get used to. So if you unlock a four-wheel drive car early, you can learn the game easier because it's easier to drive, and you should be more competitive in general because four-wheel drive cars seem to be better. But for the actual game, when I'd assume all the cars will be there at the start to get, again, I don't know if four-wheel drive is going to be a good thing or bad thing, because it may make, say, Gran Turismo 6 style, where you have one dominant car for a particular class. But we'll just have to see again, folks. It's too early to tell yet. But on to the next thing, how the cars feel. It still feels simulation like the Gran Turismo games usually are, but again, there's stuff like this, which is on the screen now, that's not so simulation, but all in all, it's not really all that bad of a thing. Because, again, as I mentioned before, for the people just picking up the game and aren't too used to it, you don't necessarily want simulation crammed down your throat to the point if you have to do everything exactly like it is in racing, but it's also good to have some simulation value for the people who want it, because the cars drive fairly like simulation, and for people who are good at driving cars that way, with the new skill points and the sportsmanship rating, people end up in the right classes, and whether you're not all that good and aren't really all that used to the simulation, or if you're really good and can drive cars as good as actual race car drivers, you can still compete with others who are at your skill level, and that's pretty cotton picking cool, folks. I'm not really sure if the skill point is going to stay the same for the actual game. That hasn't been announced yet, but I don't really think it needs too much tweaking, honestly. It seems pretty accurate to me. It's kind of odd that it seems like the highest any driver's gotten yet is a B level. I don't know if that's just a cap for the beta or if nobody's played enough to get it higher. But the highest I've seen of any driver yet, I think, is IOF Racing. I think that's right. And he's at a B level and a 99 and is really high up in all the qualifiers. So I'd assume he has the highest out of everybody. And it's only a B. Supposedly it can go up to S rank, but I haven't seen anybody even at A rank yet. I don't really know what that means, but again, it could be meaningless. We'll just have to see. And finally, for how the cars sound, well, it's actually simulation again. Again, people might not like simulation, but there's games out there where the cars sound more like arcade, such as Need for Speed and all of that. But for this being a more simulation game, the cars should sound more as they do in real life and not more stylized to fit how it sounds like, well, in an arcade racer, and that's sort of like the old Gran Turismos were. Sound in this game finally sounds like it should. Just listen to this car. which is a powerful race car, and then listen to powerful race cars in Gran Turismo 6. Powerful race cars in Gran Turismo 6 sound like 700 horsepower vacuums. In this game, they actually sound like real race cars. That's pretty cotton picking cool, folks. That's pretty cotton picking cool. So, this has been more impressions of the game so far, and like in the first video, I like the game. I think it's the best Gran Turismo we've had since 5, or maybe even better than that, folks, and that's pretty cotton picking cool. GT5 was a great game, and actually it helped advance the series even more. GT6, kinda iffy and differing opinions on that, but this game seems to be just as good as any of the most famous Gran Turismo games there's been. I hope this game sells just as good as the other ones, if not even better, and hopefully this can become the norm for Gran Turismo and Polyphony Digital yet again, making top-notch simulation games that pretty much tick all the marks to make a great racing game. Hope y'all enjoyed this more impressions of GT Sport, and I hope y'all enjoy GT Sport closed beta in general. We don't know how long it's going to last yet, but for as long as the beta lasts, I'll keep on doing videos on it, and hopefully y'all keep on enjoying the game. Yeehaw.